So I decided to do a thrift transformation on this skirt. It fit fine, it just was way too poofy for me. So I started by cutting off the elastic waistband at the top and then realized I basically just had a big rectangle. So you could definitely do this with like 2 or 3 yards of fabric. All right, so first I pinned it onto my dress form in the shape that I wanted the skirt. And it's not really an A line. I would say it goes straight down. And I form fitted the top to my waist. So I put 2 darts in the back and then kind of pulled the front around so that it hangs nice. And then go ahead and cut all the extra fabric. And you can sew all of your skirt seams together. I did leave extra in the back and cut straight down the center back so I can put a zipper in it later. So make sure when you're draping it, you leave room in the back for a zipper. That way you can get in and out of your dress. So then when I sew the darts, I always reinforce them on my mannequin with extra pins so I know exactly, I kind of like point them upwards and make a line to follow with my sewing machine. And at the bottom, I put a needle straight across so I know where the dart ends. It makes it much easier when you pull it to your machine. So then I started working on the top. So starting at one corner, I used some of the other fabric. There was a lot of extra fabric. And I just pulled it straight across the bodice and I pulled it nice and tight and pinned it everywhere. And I just cut out kind of like a triangle shape, or I guess a triangle on top of a rectangle. I cut straight up to under the bust and then triangled out between the bust, if that makes sense. And then go ahead and trim the excess fabric. Make sure you always leave seam allowance, whether that's 1/2 inch or 5/8 inch, whatever you prefer to use as your seam allowance. Make sure when you're pinning and cutting that you leave that on there, otherwise it'll end up quite a bit tighter than you're expecting it to. So then I draped the bust portion and I pulled that tight across, and this is basically a rectangle that I gathered in the middle, but you might still want to pin it to make sure it's the right width. And then at the top corners, you can cut out the armholes as well. And now this rectangle didn't go all the way up to my shoulders. It literally just covers the bust, kind of like a swimsuit does. And once you've got it pinned to the right size, go ahead and cut that. And I just, with my rectangle, I just sewed elastic into the center that forced it to gather. I stretched the elastic. I sewed a zigzag stitch. When I let go, it's gathered it all for me. All right, so then I draped the back, which started at the top of the bust, went all the way around the shoulder. You can see that part I just picked up there. So just pull it as tight as you can. And then I pulled it tight in the back and pulled it straight down. And then cut the straps to whatever size you want. And then all that extra fabric, I start at the waist and cut across and then up the back. So it is a really open back if you want. And then you want to do like a rolled hem around your armhole and around the top neck. All right, so then I had a lot of extra fabric still, so I cut a couple really big triangles and did 2 godets. So all that means is I cut right where the front leg lines are, I cut straight up and you sew those triangles into there. And then in the back, I cut another piece to cover up the giant open back because I did not want a huge open back. I want to be able to wear this to church and stuff. Okay, so once that was pinned, and make sure if you pin an open back piece in there, you leave enough space that you can cut straight down the center and add a zipper again. So this is where I added the zipper in. Basically, you're going to sew all the top parts together. So sew the shoulder seams on. Sew the bust square to that bottom bust piece. Sew the sides together, and then sew the top to the skirt before you put the zipper in. And then I used some more extra fabric and I made spaghetti straps that at the top of the back, I can tie it together. And when I do this, I leave like 1/2 inch to 5/8 inch a needle away from the edge, and then I sew it again a little bit further and cut off the extra fabric. I like to do 2 lines of seams to make sure that it doesn't fray. And then I stick my tube turner in there, put the metal point in, and start turning it all out into a spaghetti strap. And then I attached those to the top back of the dress. And then I cut off or evened out the bottom of the dress, I guess, with a little help from our puppy. And I hemmed that, and voila, here we go. I hope you liked this. Make sure to like and subscribe for more.